Welcome, folks. Here's a detailed guide to walk you through the process of catching every species of catfish from the bank. All the best baits, rigs, tips, and techniques to ensure your success. Okay, friends, let's talk about the four main catfish species we're going to cover today. The blue catfish, flathead, channel, and bullhead. Each species has its own unique habits, locations, and feeding preferences, so it's always important to tailor our fishing techniques based on which one we're after. And before we dive into all the details, you always need to ensure you have the proper gear and equipment with you before you go catfishing. You want to have a strong, long rod in the 8 to 9 foot length with a sturdy backbone, a spinning reel with ample line capacity, heavy 30 to 50 pound braided line, and a 5/0 to 8/0 octopus circle hook, the bigger one for the bigger flats and blues. All this gear is going to allow you to handle a big, powerful catfish monster like you see in the background every time. Let's start with the big boys and work our way down to the smaller catfish species. So first up is the flathead. Flatheads are typically the most challenging of the species to catch because they're mostly nocturnal and prefer large, fresh, live bait. They're most commonly found in larger rivers and reservoirs with slow current and plenty of underwater cover and structure like fallen trees, logs, rock piles, and dense, thick vegetation. So here's exactly how we're going to catch them. Live bait, bluegill, shad, or even small carp work best if using live bait is legal where you live. Flatheads are the apex predator and prefer live prey, especially anything that appears wounded, injured, or bleeding. We have found that the best rig is just a simple slip sinker rig, where you thread your egg sinker onto your main braided line, then a bright colored bead and a barrel swivel. Then you can attach a leader line or your main line down about 18 to 24 inches with a 7/0 to 8/0 octopus circle hook. Okay, now that we're rigged up, just cast her out near any underwater submerged structure and around undercut riverbanks. Like we said, they prefer to feed more aggressively in lower light conditions. So dusk to nighttime is always going to be the best time to catch flatheads. And once you do feel a strong pull, give the rod a good firm hook set to make sure she's hooked. Don't believe it when people tell you not to set the hook with a circle hook, that it magically sets itself perfectly every time. That's just nonsense. Don't take any chances. Get the hook lodged in his bony jaw and land that bad boy every time without fail. And just as fun as catching flatheads is the grand behemoth, the biggest of the catfish, the blues. They are even more aggressive than any of their cousins, so we need to be using heavy gear, like we talked about earlier when targeting flatheads. Blue catfish prefer much deeper water and are most often found in very large lakes and reservoirs. And the best way to catch blues is to use huge chunks of cut bait fish like bluegill, shad, herring, and skipjack. Using fresh cut bait is always best versus frozen so that you get the full effect of the fish oils and insides dispersing scent all the way through the water column on the way down to the bottom. And you can rig up again with your slip sinker rig or modified Carolina rig as it's sometimes called, just like we did for flatheads, as this will be the key to getting depth to our rig. Just slide the sinker onto your main braided line. 50 pound is what we recommend for blues, followed by the bead, then the barrel swivel. Then the leader about 1 to 2 feet down from there with at least an 8/0 octopus hook. You always want to try to cast your bait into the deepest of holes or channels where the biggest fish are going to be hiding to stay cooler and, of course, ambush prey. So just let the bait sit right on the bottom with an occasional twitch of the rod to activate the scent trail, and hold on tight because blues are very aggressive and will put up a very tough battle once you land them. Okay, now on to the most common of the catfish species, the channel catfish, found readily all over the world and on every continent except for Antarctica. You can find channels in lakes, ponds, and rivers likely somewhere around you. And the real fun draw to catching channels is that they have a very diverse diet and will eat just about anything if they're hungry, as they are bottom-dwelling, opportunistic feeders, as you probably know already. And to catch them, stinky, smelly, and meaty is always the way to go. Chicken liver, worms, cut bait, shrimp, and stink baits are always going to be the top choices no matter where you're fishing. All these baits have very strong scents, flavor, and taste that attract channels in from a distance, even up to about 100 yards away. A great hack when using chicken liver is to stuff it into a pair of pantyhose, if using nylon is legal by you. And that keeps it together really well and allows you to cast it out to the deepest pools in the lake or pond. And just like with flats and blues, you can use a simple slip sinker rig or a fixed sinker to a swivel if you're fishing a shallower pond and using a long rod. We use a 3/0 to 5/0 size circle hook, and that is sufficient to hook all channels. You got to get the baits down to the bottom, though, just like with their catfish brothers. Channels sometimes nibble and play with their food a bit, so give it just a second or two once you feel a little pressure or weight before gently setting the hook to get them. And last but not least is the smallest of the catfish family, the bullhead. Bullheads may be smaller, but they're still fun to catch, and their clamp down force is insanely strong. They're very hardy and can also be found along with channels in rivers, smaller lakes, and ponds. Bullheads are known for their voracious appetites, so just simple baits and simple techniques can usually catch them every time. A 3/0 or 4/0 octopus hook is sufficient, and their favorite foods to eat are live night crawlers, chicken liver, stink bait, cut bait, and cheese-filled hot dogs, which we've caught more bullheads on candidly than any other bait. And a great tip if you are using cheese-filled hot dogs is to make sure you keep them frozen at all times. Why? Because it's going to stay on the hook a lot better and allow you to cast it out farther into the deepest sections of the lake. Okay, let's do a little bit of a recap. Hopefully you're still with us and you found some good tidbits in this video. Let's cover first, how is it that catfish find food in muddy or dark-stained water with such ease without even having to use their eyes? Well, that's because they have their own built-in sound amplifier called a Weberian apparatus. And all that is a series of small bones that connect their swim bladder to their inner ear. So this actually will amplify sound waves underwater, which makes them able to hear and feel prey that are moving nearby. And if you didn't know, catfish have thousands of taste buds scattered all over their body, not just their whiskers, in lieu of having scales like most fish, which of course is going to allow them to detect chemicals in the water, and that helps them more easily locate their food. The highest concentration of these sensory perceptors are located in their whiskers and barbels, but they have adapted their bodies to detect food. So we've covered some of this already, and that is where to find catfish, every species in every lake you fish, or even if it's a small pond or a river. Submerged structure, that's the golden ticket. That's where all catfish are going to be hiding out. In fallen trees, hollowed out logs, brush piles, heavy vegetation, and rock piles. It provides cover from predation and makes great ambush spots for the biggest fish. It also gives them enough forage along with more oxygen-rich water because it's cooler there. And you've heard us talking about going deep. Deep holes in rivers and lakes are always going to be the prime hideout spots for bigger catfish. That's because the combination of water depth and cover is always best to target when fishing any lake or pond. And if you are fishing for catfish in rivers, They often hide out in undercut banks and outside river bends where the current erodes away the shore bank, which is a nice little hiding spot for them. And let's wrap up with live bait. Again, make sure live bait is legal where you live, but it is the natural prey for all catfish. It's what they eat every day. There is no more attractive option to the catfish than live bait. Go get 'em, gang. Happy catfishing out there. Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button before you leave, and don't forget to enable your bell notifications so you never miss another great video coming your way.